All right.
Yes, of course, the story here is we just saw Mage Bane Lizard at its best. We're about to see it kind of at its worst, you know.
Okay.
Where, not so good against a bunch of 6/6s, a bunch of creatures, very creature-heavy deck. Deck playing a bunch of cutdowns and removal spells, so if it is an issue, it can be removed. And that is the deck-building cost of playing a kind of Sideboard-esque card in your main deck.
Okay, checks out. So we have Perry playing the Hired Claw to start it off. And just a land and a pass for Ben. Who do you think's favored in a matchup like this? I think both decks had in mind the Izzet deck, but how do they line up with each other here?
I think pretty good for demons, honestly.
Okay.
The demon deck is just chock full of both cheap removal spells, but more importantly, ridiculously large threats that end the game very, very quickly. You know, Sheoldred, Archfiend of Vidross. These are cards that get it done really, really quick, which is one of the important parts against these aggro decks where you want to kill their stuff and then turn the corner and end the game in 2 turns.
Yep. Checks out to me. Here is the bat. Not only is it good at breaking up the curve of mono red, but having that lifelink ability ends up being pretty awesome. And this is pretty much the go-to thing when you see one removal spell, or honestly, even if there's multiple, you take the cheapest one that could kill the bat, right?
Yeah, it's not a matchup that Bat shines in. This is not the pure goal of the card. Much better against Domain or Control deck, stuff like that. But it's a very reasonable speed bump.
Yeah.
You know, it often draws a removal spell of some kind. It forces your opponent to kind of trip up a little bit where they have to spend mana on maybe turn 3 or 4 they would want to. It might gain a life or 2, and it can block at a pinch as well.
Yep, absolutely. And gain a little bit of life here and there. You know, always pretty nice. Here comes an attack for 5. And looks like we are just taking it. Ben goes down to 11 and heads back. And just a fantastic aggressive start here from Perry.
Yeah, the big thing about Perry's draw here, if it is so good, is it is so creature and threat dense. Because there's a lot of removal in Ben's deck, so you really don't want to be in a spot where you play creature, it gets killed, you play creature, it gets killed, and your hand is Burst Lightning, Lightning Strike, Witchstalker Frenzy.
Yeah.
That's a really bad place to be, so very, very threat dense.
You're at 20? Well, make it 17.
Yeah,
Your go.
Gotcha. And of course, being on the play here is absolutely huge as well, as it always is for mono red.
Yep. Bat comes in, gain a life, take your opponent down, and let's see what we got. Go for the throat to deal with the challenger straight away. Just ends up being important at preventing the ability to draw a card versus waiting for Perry to play a Monstrous Rage or something like that, right? You just got to get rid of it right away?
Yeah, with the Village in play, and even with the threat of Village or Monstrous Rage, just get rid of the thing. You're going to kill it anyway. You know, what's the axiom? You know, bad players play things at sorcery speed. Good players play things at instant speed.
Yeah.
Great players play things at sorcery speed when they're supposed to, and that's a good example of that.
Yes, I like that. I like that. So both Hired Claws getting in there and boosting both of them up. Takes a good chunk of damage.
And now we're getting into the boom boom territory for Ben.
Yep. And I want to say Ben is at a little bit lower life. There's a bat taking the last card. The lizard comes down. And we see Ben up to 7 as the dust settles.
Yeah, I mean, no cards in it for Perry, but the Village in play means that there are a lot of big draws.
Yep.
And even if there isn't a big draw, these pump abilities on the Hired Claws are just totally fine in this spot, you know?
And you know that the coast is clear if these creatures get to turn sideways. Okay, yeah. So you have to do it at the beginning of combat. You just can't prevent, or you just can't have these claws, you know, stacking up with their damage.
Clawing away.
Just clawing away. That's why we pay you the big bucks here.
Thanks. Yeah, and wise of Ben. So we saw Ben immediately kill the Emberheart Challenger on Ben's turn, but wisely waiting here because the Village in play, possible haste threat of a different creature, or if Perry wanted to use it on one of the Higher Claws, kill it in response. So keeping the options open, waiting until the last reasonable moment.
Exactly, and no, you know, Spell Pierce, anything that would, you know, prevent that. So Coast is pretty clear to wait a little bit, but Ben for sure has to respect his life total and deal with this claw before it can get in there. Now we got an attack. We're boosting it up. And this should be Ben falling to 2.
There are a lot of great red cards in Standard. I think it gets lost a little bit how solid Hired Claw is.
It's so good.
It's basically close to a 2/2 for 1 with upside. It's got a mana sink ability, a little bit of synergy. Card's just great.
Turns out Bloomburrow has an incredible amount of good creatures.
Yeah.
Whether they're adorable bunnies that turn to be terrifying or a bunch of really tricky lizards. There's a lot of little creatures coming around.
Legendary Outlaw.
All right, so attacks in, puts Ben down to 2. Ben's at an effective 4 with these lifelinkers coming in, and with Perry playing nothing, I mean, you gotta think that this is just a brick, or could be Witchtalker Frenzy, which would be incredible.
Yeah, very reasonable. You know, there was no big play from Ben last turn. Maybe wanting to just kind of set up a little bit more, get the extra bat down, get a removal spell in, and then drop the big whammy now. Sheoldred. Speed Demon would be a little scary, honestly, as far as the life loss goes, but or Archfiend if it draws good as well. And again, this is a very creature-heavy deck for Ben. There are also 4 Preachers. There's Quarsi Revenant. Am I saying that right? Quasi
Revenant,
yes.
I believe.
Yep. And so there are a lot of big boom-booms here. And, of course, the Unholy Annex. And what's the other half of the room?
Ritual Chamber.
That's
yes.
6/6 token.
Yeah, just a lot of ways to gain life. I mean, this Orzhov deck has so many ways to gain life here, whether it be Preacher creating vampires that gain life, the Revenant to have lifelink, Bees out of the sideboard. I think the one major card that we're going to see immediately get sided out, Speed Demon. You don't want to be losing life to draw cards against this red deck.
Yep.
Lizard comes in, gets even bigger, and then a second Lizard comes down, which will probably be sided out from Perry's side as well, I would think. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, for sure. But, 3 life points for Ben now. Casting your removal spells is a little more painful than you'd like it to be, and it does just attack for 1.
Yeah.
And it can be 2. It isn't a Lizard, so the Rockface Village is able to target it.
Oh, yes. Is that a Splinter Twin situation, or?
A little bit.
Okay. Looks like it's coming in there. More than likely just taking 1, but maybe this Lizard doesn't block for whatever reason. I'm not seeing a clear reason to do so. So it looks like Perry falls to 16. Ben goes up 1 life point. And, man, this Hired Claw has just gotten carried away. Think of the amount of damage. You don't see a Hired Claw with 3 counters on it too often, as that means it has connected and done a ton of damage.
Yeah, 1 mana for a red 4/5 is pretty good.
Pretty good. Yep, not so bad.
We see Preacher here on Ben's side, a little late to the party. Ben would have loved this a few turns ago, and Preacher's the kind of bridge the gap to your bigger threats kind of card, and we really have been waiting for one of those big threats now for a number of turns, and it has not shown up.
Yeah, Preacher on 3 looks a lot different than turn 6 here. Flip side, Perry isn't just windmill slamming an attack in, but you don't like when your mono red player is doing this kind of math. It usually signifies a monstrous rage, as I feel like that one would probably be pretty good here, huh? But no, a pass. It's probably not monstrous rage.
I was hoping for count.
Burst lightning. You
kick burst lightning. That's what I was hoping for. Showboat for the camera a little bit. Go for a little emotional damage.
Yeah. I would like it. I think
that kind of showmanship's missing in Magic a little bit. Put your opponent on tilt. Players too nice these days.
That's true. And you don't see enough people openly celebrating when they win. I want the hype. I want them to, jump up to their friends, high five. See, even when it's just round 4 and you're now 3-1. Come on, get hyped.
It's funny because you want to see the fun, exciting part of it.
Yeah.
I want to see the cutthroat. I'm going to destroy your mental game for game 3. I'm going to make you a shell of a person, and then I'm going to eat you alive in game 3.
Yes. You're the evil one. I'm the good one here for sure.
Yep.
All right. So.
Are those both Caves of Quelos?
I believe those are, because at end step, the Hired Claw did go up. You can do that if your opponent's taking a bunch of damage.
Yeah, pretty adorable. So as we were saying, I was saying in the intro that there's no cost to splashing. There is a mild cost, as you saw there. And we see Death Touch on multiple creatures on Ben's side, as well as Lifelink. And we're seeing, again, why I think this Demon's deck is favored here.
Yeah.
You know, even though Ben's missed a bunch of land drops, hasn't played a big hitter yet, there's just a good amount of removal and life gain. And Perry has missed for a turn or two, but, like, realistically, a lot of Perry's draws just aren't good here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of small creatures, you know. Like, if you draw a Heartfire Hero here, yeah, I mean, I guess you can pump it up in attack.
Sure.
It's walking into a lifelinker, you know.
It's not amazing.
Yep.
The best card Perry wants has been hidden underneath that bat here from the very beginning of this game, and this is the big turning point. If Perry gets hit for 4 here and Ben's able to gain 4, I think we're done.
Yeah, I strongly agree. Yeah, and this bat has also dealt 5 points of damage, gained 5 points of life.
It's basically a Baneslayer.
Right.
Make your own Baneslayer over 5 turns.
It's a very slow Baneslayer because Ben would be dead. Ben would be a -1. So.
Yep.
Even though it didn't look super impactful on that turn 2, it has done a lot of incremental advantage.
Looks like Ben is up to 8. Ben was pretty happy to click those buttons when he goes up to 8 instead of down to 3, or whatever the lowest point we had so far. So here is another Preacher, and you got to think we're basically out of time. Monstrous Rage on Hired Claw to go crazy. Or also, I'm just very curious, what is in Perry's hand? We have 4 cards. We haven't played anything, in a solid 45 minutes, I feel.
4 cards, really?
4 cards in hand for Perry, yeah. Just has been draw, go.
I just, don't believe you.
I know. Even lands, you would play lands because if you draw the Heartfire or the Challenger, you want to be able to have, not played your land, just in case you get a land or a spell, but...
Yeah,
what could they be, Perry?
There are no lightning strikes, so we're not sandbagging some sort of ridiculous emotional damage kill.
yes.
Much to my chagrin.
Yep. All right, so we're getting an attack in for 3. Ben's thinking about it. This would be this Preacher getting a Vampire. And then connecting for a ton of damage. I got to say, as great as these Lizards seemed in the last matchup against Nicole Tipple, they do not seem good against the basically mono-black deck.
Yeah.
At all.
This is definitely a targeted card.
Yeah.
And, kind of similar to how, Dexter playing a million lockdowns, and those just, aren't great against Omniscience or Control and stuff, You build your deck in the metagame you expect. It's not always going to be perfect.
And that's why you got a Sideboard. You can take some of those cards out.
Yep. One thing about Sideboard of this matchup that is different than it would be for Monoblock is these Sunspine Lynxes are actually pretty live.
Yes. I mean, I feel like they're already pretty good against Monoblack anyways. There's a lot of swamps, but they still have a decent amount of non-basic lands. And just shutting out the Lifelink with Preachers, with Unholy Annex, gaining life. Even if they take 0... the fact that they can't gain life can be an important clause against both Mono Black and Orzhov Demons.
I just love seeing these end-step Hired Claw activations.
Yes.
It's just so funny.
This has to be the largest Hired Claw I've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, by far, yeah.
Yes. And there it is. There's all the cards in hand. So a bunch of lands and one more creature. Perry, had Ben on the edge and then just fizzled out at the end. And that's just mono red. That can happen. There's no card advantage outside of the challengers. You can just run out of steam for sure.
Yeah, and it shows the resilience of the Demon deck, too.
Yeah.
With all of his life gain and great blockers, you can kind of come back from these bad spots.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, looking at the sideboard here. Looking at Perry's list to start. What do you like here, Jim?
Well, so first things first, yeet those lizards into the sun. Just toss them across the room. Go get them later for next round against Izzet. But
trade them for cats?
Again, looking for a little showmanship here. But the Lynx looks great. Case the Crimson Pulse also looks awesome here. It is great, these grindy matchups. It is a little awkward against Shielded proper because it is a card draw card, but still excellent. Twisted Field is a fun one. This is the Threaten. I believe it makes a, what's the extra condition?
It makes a roll. I believe it is a cursed roll.
Yep. So stealing a Shieldred or a big, huge demon, big way to swing a game.
Yep.
Kind of an awkward card against Deep Cavern Bat.
A little bit.
You don't want to show it to your opponent first. So that's kind of a wild card there. But definitely Lynxes, definitely Case the Crimson Pulse. Get those lizards out of here.
Do you leave in the bats against mono red? Like, it has the words lifelink attached to it, so it seems good, but when they have all these burst lightnings, maybe these torches, like, I've had bats be amazing. I've had them be so terrible against red.
I think yes, because realistically there aren't many other good targets in the entire deck for Burst Lightning, for Torch. And your goal, the bat's goal isn't to live. The bat's goal is to trip them up. That game was a little weird. The bat kind of just lived for a really long time. But usually your goal is to make them stumble, make them use a removal spell on turn 3 when they want to cast a Nemesis or whatever, and then while they're messing with that, you go, oh, turn 4, 6/6. Oh, turn 5, 6/6.
Yeah.
So I like the card a lot as a kind of a little bit of a delaying tactic to get you to your bigger cards.
Okay, makes sense to me. All right, so if you want to pick up some of these really cool decks that you're seeing on the screen, well, you might have too many cards at home already, Jim. What are you going to do with them?
Sell them.
Sweet, get them out of there.
You can hop online to sell your cards at StarCityGames.com, or at any event, just walk right to the booth, and you can sell your cards. You can get some hold hard cash, obviously, if you need to pay your rent or buy whatever real-life things you might need. Boring. Or you can take that big markup on store credit, and you can bank up your credit. You can use it immediately at the booth or on the website, or you can save it for later. You're always going to buy more Magic cards. Don't lie to me and tell me you're not, because you are.
Yep.
And having that bank account sort of like in the system, ready to rock and roll, is awesome. You go to an event, you got to buy some cards, and I just have credit. I'll take that, put it on my tab. So love to see it. Sell your cards. StarCityGames.com.
On my way to the airport, I stopped at SCG to pick up my card order where, you guessed it, I paid with all store credit because I had a bunch racked up from selling some cards to get my blue-white control deck that I went 0-1 with in a Reese-Q.
Congrats.
Thank you. I had a great time, though.
What'd you lose to?
I lost to Is Prowess. I know. Game 3, I was on the draw. I mulled to 5.
Oh, my God. Yeah,
I got wrecked.
It's honestly goes to show why Is It Prowess is, currently our number 1 deck, where when you have a deck that's just like really fast, really resilient, you just get to prey on people who just, I mulligan to 6 in the draw, and they kind of just got me. And I know it was a good matchup, but them's the breaks.
Doesn't matter. Get wrecked.
Yep. And when you're playing, Domain, or even like a mid-range deck like this Demon deck, you can't really pounce on that.
No.
You're going to give your opponent at least some time to put it all together. So there's definitely some inherent value there.
Yep. Absolutely. So getting ready here, both players 5-0, so winning in for day 2. But neither of these players are thinking that right now. They got their eyes set on an undefeated record or maybe a top 8 when you have this kind of start.
Or hopefully nothing at all.
Yep.
I'm a clear mind, no numbers kind of guy,
Yeah.
I think that for me at least, my goal in a tournament is every round is I'm just absent of the world.
Yes.
Someone's in front of me, I'm going to try and beat them.
Yep.
I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do it again. And at some point, a judge will walk over and hand me a trophy or tell me, Jim, the tournament's over. You're 1-5. Please go home. You can't play anymore. You're done.
You are not allowed to be in the building any longer, Jim. Please leave.
Yeah, the hall is closing. But, trying to, because your goal is to play as hard as you can in every match.
Yeah.
Your goal is not to try harder when you're 5-0 or to try less when you're 2-2 or whatever,
Yeah.
So
every match is the same. And I think that's one of the tougher lessons for players is, they're getting close. Be like, now I need 2 wins for top 8. Now I need 1 win for top 8. I'm 1 win away from my goal. Those kind of things, they inherently build pressure on you.
Yep.
So pressure, sure, it can be a motivating factor. And pressure is, to steal Tennis's line, pressure is a privilege where it comes to, well, if you have a lot of pressure on you, that means that you are doing something big. You're close to something that's worth accomplishing, But it can very much take down a lot of players if you let that pressure get to you. If you can get it out of your head, great. That is the way to do it.
Yeah, true mental game skill.
Yeah.
You could say the easy thing to do is to ignore your emotions, to ignore the pressure.
Yeah.
That's hard to do. True
Very hard.
mental game zenness is being able to feel the pressure, have it, but be able to use it.
Yes.
And not let it use you.
Yep, absolutely. I remember my first big top 8, a state tournament in North Dakota, when I was a 14-year-old kid, and I was so nervous going into the finals that I asked everyone around, the 15 people or whatever that are waiting for us to end to go to dinner. I was like, can we all, not watch my match? And the guy in front of me is like, you're going to have to get used to the pressure, kid.
Did you win?
I did win, yeah.
Sorry, Dad.
It was the Kavu, the 2/2 Kavu, where when you gain life, it got bigger.
Fiery Justice.
And then Fiery Justice. Yeah, it was a sweet deck. Got to play Garrick Wild Speaker. So, like, that was my curve in the first game.
Was that the Time Spiral States?
It was. I was playing against fairies in the finals, so.
Yes, yeah. I actually also won States that year.
Really? What'd you play?
Mystical Teachings.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I actually Shadow Mage Infiltrator was in the deck. That's the 1/3 Fear. It's John Finkel's Invitational card.
Yeah.
I actually attacked it into a 3/4 artifact creature, and my opponent just blocked. And I was just like, oh.
Ah.
Okay.
Is that the equivalent of Secret Reach before Secret Reach was a thing?
Yeah, basically. And I have a lot of problems with fear over the course of my career.
But
the mechanic,
You were just saying you play without fear.
Yeah, well, the mechanic is a problem.
Ah, okay.
I did win the match, thankfully.
Wow.
But
you really are the evil one in this relationship, and I'm the good guy, right? I mean, Kavu Justice, that's a good, happy deck. Mystical Teaching, that's pretty evil, dude.
The fairy can't play spells, Damnation.
Wow.
Tendrils of Corruption with like 2 swamps in your deck because you were playing the 1 Urborg or 2 Urborgs or whatever. That deck was awesome.
Oh, man.
And I splashed 4 Tarmogoyfs in the sideboard.
Oh, God.
We're already playing the Evolving Wilds. I put a Forest in the sideboard, 4 Tarmogoyfs. I have no idea if it was good or not, but the looks on my opponent's faces was awesome.
Just brutal. And I know a state tournament that, we're talking about all this nonsense as Perry Fang mulligans into pure oblivion, it looks like. Looks like Perry might be down to 5, which, honestly, it's hard to do with mono red to find 3 hands that are completely unplayable in a monocolored deck, right?
Yeah, it's, mostly either no lands, no spells.
Yeah.
Or the really awkward, like, Monstrous Rage, Burst Lightning, 3 lands. Or whatever, where your hand doesn't actually do anything. And there isn't a lot of that A plus B in this deck. Like, you see like an Oculus deck where there are so many moving parts. But it can happen.
Yeah. So getting back to your sick transformational sideboard, you sideboarded in some Goyfs, and I mean, States back then were for sure not open deck lists, so I bet you were getting people left and right.
Oh, yeah, because all the kill spells come out, and, back in the day, Tarmogoyf was an absolute monster. Just this 2-mana 5/6, nobody could beat it, and the deck even had, like, Nameless Inversion in it, which was a Kindred instance. That's 2 more types there. Yeah, it was awesome. Good times.
Sounds incredible. Sounds incredible. So, mulligan to 4 here. Not great. I see Mountain, Emberheart Challenger, 2 other cards, and Ben's got to be feeling great, right?
This is tough because there are definitely matchups where a mono red deck can mull to 4 and still feel kind of okay.
Yep.
Omniscience, or decks that where the other deck requires a lot of setup. But the Demon's deck is just a machine when it comes to killing creatures and stuff. And then
that's how you catch up.
Exactly.
Right there.
Also, sure, that a machine at these 1-for-1 exchanges, duress not working there, but cut down is going to work. And Ben just going to say, kill your card, kill your card, kill your card, 6/6.
I mean, right there, Perry basically mulligan to only 5 with that Mr. S. I will not be taking any questions on that statement, but...
Math checks out.
Okay. All right, here we go. We got the 3/3 Flying Death Touch Lifelinker, Quasi-Revenant. And here is the land activating.
All right, that's 2 cards back.
That is big. We've mulliganed to 6 now.
The question here is the Challenger going to come in? Because Challenger right now represents the only engine that Perry has access to, and Ben would snap trade.
Yeah, it just feels so bad trading with that card, because at some point, you're going to be able to give, God, if you ever put that counter on an Archfiend of the Dross or whatever, not only do you win the match, like, I think you win game 1 of the next match. It's such a sweet play.
I guess how it works.
Yeah. So here's a bat taking down the what would have been a very nice cat there to deal 3 damage and prevent all this lifelink. But instead, another bat comes down, and this is a build-your-own Baneslayer here from Ben. We got 5 lifelink coming in every single turn. This is going to be brutal for Perry to come back from.
You don't think we're dating ourselves with Baneslayer, do you, Corey?
I think, Lyra Dawnbringer?
Yeah,
is that better?
That card is legal and standard, I believe.
Is it? Or Boon Bringer Valkyrie?
Boonbringer Valkyrie is also legal, but I believe Lyra was in the Foundation starter kit.
I think you're right. And, I mean, Boonbringer Valkyrie is a supercharged Baneslayer. That one's a nice one.
That's a card we've actually seen in a number of these kind of like black-white sideboards.
Yeah. I always played one in the sideboard of Azorius Control as well. So it looks like we have the land active to show off the Hired Claw. Almost assuredly going to be played. But yeah, doesn't even want to get in the Challenger as a 3-2. Doesn't want to trade with the bats. That feels bad.
That's a huge statement.
That is a huge statement.
Because
like, I don't think Ben's blocking there.
Right. It's not a binary choice of like, do I want to trade this for the bats, yes or no? It's a, what's this attack look like?
Yeah.
Can Ben ever block there in the face of Monstrous Rage, Burst Lightning, any sort of interactive spell? It's just impossible to block.
Yeah. If you attack with confidence there, Ben is at 3 less life, down to 22, thumbs up, still has a mountain to climb, but I'm with you on there. I would have attacked as well. Now Archfiend comes down, but Ben's at 1 million life points.
Yeah, and Archfiend, as we were saying, ends the game exceedingly quickly.
Yes.
It's monstrous, and then everything that dies in its way, more life dead. It's honestly ended up not being a terrible draw for Perry. But I don't know if 7 cards would have been good enough here. Ben's hand looked great. Imagine that Perry just kept 7 and Duresh just hit on turn 1.
Yeah.
This game is probably heavily in Ben's favor. So we're seeing now the strength of his black deck against these red decks, kind of, sidestepping their removal by playing 6/6s and 5/4s and stuff or 4/5s and stuff, and then having this removal suite that can really deal with the creatures very, very effectively.
All right, so Perry has officially not mulliganed at all with another whiff duress.
It's anyone's game here, folks.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so an attack for 11, gain 5. That is Ben up to 30, and Perry down to 1.
And now,
close game.
And now, if anything dies on Perry's side, Archfiend will finish him off. 30 is a big hill to climb. The red decks in this format, be it Izzet or Mono Red, are really, really good at dealing damage in fairly large bursts.
Yes.
However, 30 is not a burst.
Yeah.
30 is the Burj Khalifa or whatever. It is a monumental task. So black deck looking pretty good.
Looking really good. Kind of a non-game there here for our second one. A Multifor is truly too much to come back from. But Ben advancing to 6-0 and has locked up day number 2.